Dear Colin, what do you make of the psychedelic brew Aaron Rodgers had? I think public figures like Aaron Rodgers have to be very careful about saying they don't believe epidemiologists and they Googled stuff and found stuff you should take instead. I don't know. I respect doctors. Mental health is serious. That's why we have licensed professional mental health specialists all over America. Hey, if you want to take a psychedelic trip and poop and barf your brains out, go for it. I wouldn't talk about it. Let's be honest. We have a consumption issue in America. People can't control what they drink, what they eat, and 1,000 people will now give this psychedelic hallucinogenic a run. Somebody could get in trouble. Go see a professional, a doctor, a licensed therapist. We've gotten to a dangerous point in society where we trust Joe Rogan more than our doctor. Dear Colin, did you read that story about the co-owner of the Dolphins and Tom Brady talking years ago about him joining Miami? What do you make of it? Not much. More pearl clutching. Michael Jordan at the end of his career got into ownership. So did Derek Jeter. Tom Brady wants to. I mean, good God, there was a story 3 weeks ago about Las Vegas getting an NBA team, and people are already projecting that LeBron James would be one of the owners. When people have a $300, $400, $500 million net worth, they're not going to put it all in real estate. They're not going to put it all in the stock market. They're going to put it in something they know. What does Michael know and Jeter know and LeBron know and Peyton Manning know and Brady know? A pro sports franchise. Brady was really good friends with Robert Kraft. He probably asked him lots of questions about NFL or pro sports ownership. LeBron's got a share in the Boston Fenway Group. He has a share in a Liverpool group. I think you're unrealistic or maybe idealistic if you think really rich people aren't talking all the time about opportunities. I don't think anything less of Tom Brady at the end of his New England career and in his Tampa career, having a wealthy friend in the NFL ownership group who probably over martinis once, twice, or 10 times discussed the possibility of Tom eventually moving upstairs and off the field. Sometimes we have to be realistic in the media. This kind of shit happens all the time with rich dudes. I remember years ago, I've used this example, Dan, that Warren Buffett obviously knows a lot more about investing than both of us. But investors, even legendary investors, make mistakes. And I remember about 12 years ago, he went into newspapers, big investment newspapers. And I remember thinking, listen, I read them and I love them. And I wanted to be a columnist as a kid. That ain't a great investment. Craigslist killed the classifieds, the urgency with telephones. They exist and they matter, and journalism will always have a profound place. It's probably not the best investment. And I say this because Bill Belichick, like Warren Buffett, knows more football than you and I'll ever know, right? But no coordinators. They have a recent history of poor drafting of offensive skill people. So this was presented to me, Dan, the other day, and I'll throw it at you, is that if you look at the last 7 games of New England's schedule this year, it is a gauntlet of Pro Bowl quarterbacks, 7 straight weeks. Bill looks at that and thinks we've got to really take advantage of the first 10 games on this schedule. And by not bringing in a coordinator, there is an element of surprise in September. And that now that we both kind of go, give me a break.
Yeah.
But Bill is nothing if not strategic. It's the only answer for me when people ask, why doesn't he have an offensive coordinator? That's the only thing that's been presented to me that makes sense. Do you have a better idea?
No, there's the possibility that there's some sort of pay structure thing where you can pay guys less because you don't give them these titles. They do think about these things. You wouldn't think they would, but they do. And more likely, it's that Bill's just stubborn and he's going to do things his way. I think he did some of this with the Browns, didn't work out really well 25, 30 years ago. And he's got two sons in the staff. I think there's a design to keep the heat off them a little bit. If you make Steven defensive coordinator or play caller of anything like that, it's more likely to come down on him. I think Bill's basically saying, I'll take the heat, I'll do it. And he will take the heat if they don't get out fast, because this is being, Bill's doing the usual obtuse answer to these questions. Like, why would you even ask that? When it's like, everybody would ask that. It's like, where are these guys? Why aren't you listing them as coordinators? So he's holding on to it in a very stubborn fashion. And, you point out the gauntlet at the end. The first 4 games aren't very easy for them either. So this has potential. And he's a little bit bulletproof because he's 70 years old and he's trying to catch Shula. He's got the resume. They did make the playoffs last year, but we know Buffalo's out of reach for them. It looks like Miami might have vaulted past them a little faster now. Miami beat them twice last year. So what's going on? How's this going to go if they don't get out faster? Will Bob Kraft ever actually put heat on this Hall of Fame coach he's got right in his yard here? So it's very intriguing, but what they don't have is a lot of really talented, great players. And we're not seeing it. And you look at the depth charts around the league and where they rank with any position on the field, it's not good.
Well, I read the Jeff Benedict, Ian O'Connor, Seth Wickersham books on the Patriots and Belichick. All 3 correctly acknowledged that Brady and Kraft were very tight. But I did feel in all 3 books that Kraft often tolerates Bill's snarkiness, kind of obtuse, cranky nature. And it sounds, counterintuitive to what you would think. But I've seen coaches, Andy Reid, fall out of favor after a 3-game losing streak. And I look at Bill and I think, this team goes in this division. Miami is better offensively.
Right.
Buffalo's the class of the league. Jets are better offensively. And we have a very clear pivot in this league to offense.
Yes.
The very good defensive coaches. Pete Carroll's struggling. Mike Zimmer fired. Brian Flores couldn't get along with the quarterback. Fangio. These are capable men. And I think to myself, what if they don't make the playoffs, Dan?
Ooh, I know they're on the bubble of that. When as going in, that's a legitimate question. That's a legitimate question going in. And I'm kind of a fallback because Bill is so superior to all the other coaches, and I still believe that. And maybe he's your guy buying newspapers. Maybe he's still reading newspapers. Maybe that's why I like him, because he's old school. But the notion that you're going to go at it with linebackers who aren't that fast anymore, you're going to still play the ball like it was played in the 70s and 80s. Maybe that's not working anymore. And in certain positions, wide receiver that you've never valued, you're going to have to value because the league has changed while you're there turning 70 years old, winning all these games, chasing Shula. So it makes it an intriguing plot line as we go in. How's this going to play out? The notion of he's not going to finish behind the Jets, that will never happen.
Right.
I mean, that would be, even he would sink his own boat if that happened. So I'm not saying you got to worry about that, but the rest of it's very real. And I think that he's put a big target on his back going in. And I think he just feels that he's got the resume and the gravitas to carry this.